Today I'll be speaking about what constitutes Auslan structure. Auslan is a visual language. It doesn't follow a sequential word order in the same way that English does. Auslan is very visual and is about showing action or showing activity, and this is an important point to remember. It's also important to remember that we have different kinds of depicting signs that help to make our language more visual. We have size and shape specifiers, or SAS. We have handling signs, and we have entity signs as well. And I'm sure we will cover all of these in class. I'd like to give you some examples of how Auslan structure works. Remember, we're trying to get away from following the sequential patterns of English in our signing. There is no connection between English sequences and visual language. Pronouns are one of the main English features that we need to get rid of when we make our structures more visual, and I'll show you what I mean. In English, I might sign this sentence: I will give you a pen. Now, the way I've signed it that way is very English in its structure. In Auslan, I would just show myself giving you the pen. And that is a correct translation of the English sentence, I will give you a pen. There's different ways I can do it, but they're all very visual and they all follow an appropriate Auslan structure in that they show what I'm giving you, how I'm giving it, where I'm giving it. Remember, it's important to use space in order to make your language visual. Once you've set up space, it's very easy to describe how you give things or how things move within that space. You could also be describing how you do things as well. Another example I'd like to give you involves the sign buy. We might say you bought it or I'll buy it for you. And in this instance, what we're seeing is a directional verb. So I'm showing who bought it and who was bought it for. Who I bought it for, rather. But remember that this depends on the space being set up appropriately. So it's important you set up the space first, and then you keep using space in the same way if you're referring to the same person. If it's a different person, you need to set them up in a different area of space. So I might buy for this person and for another person and indicate that difference with how I use the space. The sign invite works similarly. I may be invited somewhere. I might invite a lot of people to come somewhere. Somebody may invite somebody else. It could be two friends that I set up in space, perhaps Ben and Eddie. I've set them up in this way, and I can show Ben inviting Eddie by using space in that way, and showing Eddie accepting the invitation similarly. The Auslan sign for pay works in a similar way. I pay this person, I've paid them. So again, using Ben and Eddie, I've paid them both, that's done. I could show it that way. I could show paying everybody. So there's a lot of people and I've paid them all. Or I could pay bills. I could set it up in that way and say I've paid all my bills and thank God I've got them off my back. You can use pronouns in this way, the sign for you. Again, directional, you all. This sign, it's up to you. Who is it up to? It will depend on the direction. It might be up to an individual or up to the group. Sign for ask also works in this way. If we have two people asking each other, I could show it like this. Me asking everybody. The sign for blame is also a great example. I might say Ben blamed Eddie and show it this way because he hadn't paid the bills yet, and the conversation would unfold like this, using that space. And again, it's very important that the sign blame reflects that space that we've set up. When I describe emailing, I might say I emailed Ben and do it in this direction, or I emailed him a lot by changing how I signed the sign email. So you can show the speed as well. We were sort of casually emailing back and forth, or we were frantically emailing back and forth. The sign for help is also used directionally. I can use space to show Ben helping somebody else or somebody else helping Ben. I might show this me helping everybody. I might not do that in one continuous motion though for help everybody. It is possible, but I'd be more likely to repeat the sign over and over again. So it's important to remember that directional verbs are there for you to use and they will help make your language more visual. The sign for walk is one I can modify to show how I was walking. I might have been meandering along, sort of looking around me. I might be walking very fast. I'm in a real panic. I need to get somewhere quickly. So I can show different speeds of my walking with how I make the sign, and this makes it more visual. Remember, this is not how it happens in English. In English, you might add a whole bunch of other words in sequence to show how it was done. In Auslan, it just happens visually. I might use modified verbs to show how I was driving. I might be flying along the road. I might be weaving all over, going up and down hills. Might show how I sign, whether I sign relaxed or in a very chatty manner or, very fast. There's all this sort of descriptive information. So these are some different examples that I hope help open up your understanding of Auslan structure and how individual that structure is. There's many different examples we could give, but I'd like to leave that for a discussion in class. Now, I'd like you all to have a try yourselves. Have fun.